Welcome to the Football Pyramid Talk podcast. Available to listen to on YouTube and Spotify. George, Simon and Sterling as your hosts. 7 different leagues. Enjoy the episode.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 36 of the Football Pyramid Talk podcast. We've got a bank holiday special this week, absolutely buzzing for it. We've had some crackers over the weekend. I mean, most teams have played twice. We've had FA Cup, youngsters going in goal for West Ham, penalty shootout. It's been brilliant. So without further ado, we'll get straight into it. West Ham versus Leeds is an absolute cracker in the FA Cup. There was, two good games really. I think that and the Southampton game were really, really entertaining for the neutral. Leeds, I think they did deserve to win it in the end, personally.
Yeah.
But I think the Hammers will be kicking themselves, don't you think, after that? Getting back in the game so late on and then scoring. Well, Bowen hit the post and they scored 2 offside goals. They had the momentum, but they just couldn't get over the line, could they? And then Leeds go and win it on pens.
Yeah, I mean, this game was mental, to be fair. I mean, West Ham just came out of nowhere, really, in the last couple of minutes. And after, quite a lacklustre performance, they sort of turned it up a gear very late on and Leeds just fell apart. But they kept in the game in extra time. I thought, when West Ham got them 2 goals, half the stadium was empty. Do you remember when I was saying that signed? Half the West Ham fans had left the stadium and they were having to watch it off of this bloke's WhatsApp video call. Have you seen that?
They got what they deserved. They got what they deserved for leaving early, I think. But all right, Leeds.
They got what they deserved to a certain extent, those people. But then, when you think of all the problems that West Ham have got, you would have hoped that someone might have gone round saying, "Open the doors, let these people back in," because this club is teetering on the brink of disaster. They reported £104 million loss in February for the last season, and they've admitted that even whatever division they end up playing the next season, they have to sell players. So, if they somehow, by the skin of their teeth, stay up, they're going to be certainties to be in the relegation players next season. And you would have thought, we all are of the opinion that you paid your money, you wait until the game's finished. But you would have thought they would have gone round and said, let these people back in to see the penalty shootout or something. It was small-minded, I think. There can't be any possible reason for not doing it. And West Ham need all the good publicity they can get, frankly.
Yeah, it's true. And they needed the support, didn't they, in the stadium? So there is that. But I just think never leave a game early, and that proved it. But you're right, George, what you said about Leeds. They threw the game away almost. I mean, they didn't, but they did their very best at it. And they were in control that whole game up until the 90th minute. It was just bizarre, and that shows what momentum can do, and it's the beauty of the FA Cup as well. That you almost knew as soon as that first goal went in that West Ham were going to go and get another one. And to be fair, Disasi's goal was unreal. He got his really nice ball from Adama. Yeah, nice ball in from Adama, and then to get his foot that high. It was a really good goal. But I think one of the stories of the game was the young West Ham goalkeeper stepping in. I mean, we were saying, weren't we? Or I said anyway, I wouldn't want to go in on the pitch if I was him. I would have been absolutely bricking it. I would have been bricking
100%.
Extra time in the FA Cup quarter-final. But luckily, I think he only had to touch the ball once and then booted it outfield, and that was full time. And he saved a penalty in the game as well. Obviously, they were on the losing side, but what a moment for him.
Yeah, 100%. Great moment for him. And, I mean, just annoying that the West Ham players didn't really fancy helping him out, really. I mean, his save from the penalty wasn't the greatest of penalties, was it?
Rubbish pen.
Rubbish penalty, but good moment for him. But, yeah, unfortunately, West Ham were on the wrong end of the result, which I think the fans probably deserved, as you said, as you both said, because literally after the stadium was gone, and then you see clips on social media of about 50 odd fans gathering around watching it off of a singular bloke's phone on a WhatsApp video call from about row Z. It's just crazy. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah, as we said before, they definitely got what they deserved. But Leeds back at Wembley, I think it's been 60 odd years, they said, didn't they, since they've been at Wembley? That might be completely wrong, but I know it's been a long old time. And who did they get in the end? Did they get Chelsea?
Chelsea. Yeah, Chelsea.
Yeah. So Leeds versus Chelsea. Should be a good game. Leeds are on good form. Chelsea aren't. I think they'll give it a good go, and the Leeds fans will be in their numbers at Wembley. It should be really good. And I've got the bloke's name in goal, Finley Herrick. So shout out to him. Probably never see this, but he might. Big up him. He did unbelievable anyway. And I mean, just loved seeing it. I cheered when he saved that penalty. I was so happy for him, but
Mm.
it was just the way it went, unfortunately. The other really good game, and potentially even better game, was Saints 2, Arsenal 1, wasn't it, George?
Yeah, incredible game. I mean, Southampton showed why fans are now sort of starting to recognise what an incredible side they are and the incredible run of form they're on after, they're beating the Premier League leaders at the moment in Arsenal 2-1 at the St Mary's, which I thought was absolutely rocking, which you could hear from the TV. It was absolutely incredible atmosphere there, but Southampton played so well. I mean, Ross Stewart got the first goal from a great James Breed cross, but I mean, Ben White just let the ball go over his head. I don't know what he was doing. Completely
Rubbish
misjudged it.
defending.
Yeah, it was the story of their game, really. They put it out on the TV. Southampton went long, and it just really sort of bewildered the Arsenal back line. Just didn't really know what to do about it, because whenever it went long, they would always pick up the second ball, Southampton, and be inside their half and just look to really, confuse the just Arsenal players, really. They put out a good team, and a 16-year-old, Max Dowman, I thought was their best player, to be honest, and I think
Yeah,
that showed how that's how poor of a performance I think it was from Arsenal. But Southampton made that happen, to be honest. They came back through Gyökeres, but then Shea Charles off the bench instantly responded after Tom Fellows made a great run off the right-hand side, I think, might have been the left, but really good run. He played it through to him, cracking finish, and incredible run of form, which you'll speak about in the Championship, Simon, but they got another win away at Wrexham last night, and it's extended their run to 16 games unbeaten. They're unbeaten since January the 17th, which is before my birthday. I mean, that felt like months ago, It's crazy that they're on this run of form. 13 wins and 3 draws. I mean, it's mental, isn't it, how well they're playing at the minute in time. And I think it's finally being picked out by, fans on social media and just the media in general that Ton Reckert's working absolute wonders at Southampton at the minute, and he's earned Southampton a spot at Wembley facing Man City. See what they can do. I'd absolutely love it if they did over Man City and got themselves into a FA Cup final. But yeah, absolutely special night for Southampton fans at the St Mary's, but went from a quadruple to a double in the space of 2 games for Arsenal. So, of course, for concern, but they did win last night. But incredible from Southampton. Don't know what you think about it.
I thought you really picked out well there what Arsenal's problem was. They just didn't know how to react to what Southampton were doing. And that's one criticism that's been levelled at Arteta recently, is that they're tightly drilled and they know the set patterns they're going to play the game in. And if something unexpected happens, they don't really know how to react to it. And that's a lack of leadership on the pitch, I think. So you might call into question his management of the squad for that game. Maybe could have benefited with a few more experienced heads on the pitch. But as you say, Down was the bright spot.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit incongruous to say that they were just set up to play in set patterns and, you know, they had the routines all worked out the way they were going to play when they had him on the pitch. But although he was, you know, he was some of the best things that they came up with, he was a little bit like Adama Traore. He was just running towards the Southampton penalty box and falling over a lot of the time. He didn't
Yeah.
really come with a great deal of anything new. But I agree with you as well. The atmosphere was cracking there. They had the retro FA Cup final shirts from 1976 on, and they'd really got the crowd whipped up for it. And yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, just on Arteta, you mentioned him there. You know, he's very conservative, isn't he? And he's built that team to be hard to beat. They were
Yeah.
about Saliba, which I didn't think helped, but their team was, as you said, George, good enough to get over the line. I saw a clip on Arsenal Fan TV, and they were saying why Rice has had about 3 weeks off at this point. Well, I don't know if he played last night for him in the Champions League, but at that moment, he said he's had about 3 weeks off. Why is he not there? Why are the best players not there? And as you said, he's gone from quadruple to a double. And they were saying, the Arsenal fans, he's got to go and win the Champions League now. If he's resting players for the FA Cup, not taking it that seriously, he's got to go win the Champions League. And I don't know how much I agree with that, but he's definitely got to go and win the Premier League, Arteta. Because if he doesn't, I think those fans will start to turn on him, because it was a, I wouldn't say a risk, but it was quite controversial to leave some of the players out that he left out. Saka, another one. You know, they almost took Southampton a bit too lightly. And I know that we cover this and you know, we look at Southampton almost every week now, but we weren't expecting them to be this good, right? In the back end of the season and go on that 16-game run. But surely Arsenal would have given them a little bit more respect than they did on the day.
I would have thought
but
so.
I think that goes down to that lack of respect from the manager, I think. I mean, they did have players on the pitch that could have reacted to what was going on there. You know, Odegaard was playing in midfield, and now keep going on about Ben Rice, but I don't know if he would have single-handedly changed that personally. I think there were just too many people on the pitch that didn't really fancy it that much, quite frankly.
Yeah,
And I'd half
I
an
do
eye on
think.
last night's game.
Yeah, definitely. I do think Saints played an absolute blinder as well. That
Yeah,
Stienza on the wing,
player.
left wing, he was really, really good. I was really
Really
impressed
good.
with him. And he actually hit the bar, didn't he? At 1-0, I think it was.
He
Like,
did. Yeah.
more or less straight after that Arsenal goal went in. But yeah, massive credit to Southampton. We'll have to see how they get on against City. I'll be backing them all the way as well. And speaking of City, they dismantled Liverpool, didn't they? 4-0, Erling Haaland hat-trick. And it was surprising, really, because I think Liverpool were well in that game before the first goal, and they really they blew it by going into half time at 2-0. I think it was always going to be a long way back at that point. And as I said, I think they were in the game, arguably the better team before that first goal went in, that penalty.
Yeah, it was quite even to start off with, but I think Liverpool were sort of the better side as the first half went on. But then, you know, the penalty from Haaland changed the complexion of it all. They really needed to get themselves in at half time with just that goal counting against them, but then he scored a second and it was pretty much over then. I mean, Virgil came out on Monday and said we all just agreed that it was going to be 4-0 and we stopped playing for the last half hour, which Fabian Wirtz has basically turned around and said, don't know what we're talking about, before tonight's game. But that was quite obvious that that's what was happening. I mean, to be honest with you, it was only the fact that we had a house full watching it that I kept it on, because if I'd been sitting there on my Todd, I would have turned it off, because there was no way Liverpool were coming back in that game at 4-0 down.
Yeah.
And that 4-0 after 57 minutes, so, you know, half hour, let's just call it 4-0. And, you know, and that summed it up, really, that the referee blew for time on 90 minutes. with not
Yeah,
a second added on, which just shows you exactly what the mood was in the ground with the supporters and the players, because a lot of the Liverpool fans had already made the decision to get out early.
There was 9,000 Liverpool fans there, and that's quite
Yeah.
a damning statement from Virgil to say that about the side. I don't think that's going to go down well with the fans. I know it's not.
No.
But they're
But I mean,
they're not playing
there's a
for them
long list
or
of
the
things.
manager.
Yeah, there's a long list of things that the fans aren't happy with. I mean, to be honest
Oh,
with you, we saw them a couple of weeks ago down at the Amex, and I wasn't that impressed by the support that they were giving the team. But it was completely different in that first 36 minutes, 37 minutes at the Etihad. They really did get behind them. But, they were just sucker punches, those 2 goals, really.
yeah, they had a couple good chances. Salah, Ekitike, to name 2. There might have been more, but those were definitely 2 clear-cut ones. And to be honest, I don't think City had to work too hard for their win. Penalty was a bolt-on one. Haaland's header, simple. Goal straight after half-time. It was fairly routine, I thought, but there we go. FA Cup semi-finals coming. Southampton City. Chelsea Leeds. We won't speak about Chelsea because they completely wiped the floor with poor Vale. I didn't even watch it. I've not watched the highlights. Not really
Yeah.
too much to say, is there?
The Chelsea Leeds semi-final is going to bring back memories of one of the dirtiest games of football ever played in English football history, which was the 1970 FA Cup final replay between Leeds and
Alright.
Chelsea. And someone was telling me on Monday that a Premier League referee watched that game back and said the game would have been abandoned if it had been refereed with modern referees, because both sides would have been down to 7 men. it was
It's
an
crazy.
absolutely filthy game. If you get a chance, put it up on YouTube and just see how X-rated the whole thing was. But even for the times in the 1970s, it was regarded as an absolutely awful game. And they've got history that goes back decades, those 2 teams. So it'll be a tasty game.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to hope so and run it back. Run it back,
Yeah.
I say.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Get the game abandoned. That'd be brilliant. That'd be a right laugh.
Yeah, we'll move on to the championship, and really a lot of movement in this division, I think, over Bank Holiday weekend. I wanted to speak about Millwall's Bank Holiday run, and it got off to an absolute flyer. They had a top of the table clash against Borough away, which they ended up coming from 1-0 down, winning 2-1. Coburn with a double, former Borough player was giving it the big one, Dad said. I went out, I watched some of it, but I didn't get to see that. To be honest, Millwall, they were riding their luck from what I saw, but they did really well to get this result. And then that put them into second, above Borough, and you're just thinking, right, go and back it up against Norwich, and you're in pole position. And they went and lost 2-1 at home to Norwich, so a really, really mixed bag there. On top of the world, I'd imagine, on Friday after winning that, and then complete smash back down to reality. They should be beating Norwich at home. I know Norwich are doing well under their new manager, and they've had a good second half of the season, but it's a really damning result for them. Drops them down to 4th. Level on points with Ipswich and Borough as well. But the crucial thing here is that Ipswich have got 2 games in hand. So I think it was always going to be tough when you look at those 2 games in hand for Ipswich. But Millwall, they needed to back that up against Borough with a win, and they haven't done, which I think is unfortunately going to mean that they're going to miss out now. I don't know what you guys think. I know the other week we thought they were going to be in there. We were saying it was last week and the week before, but it's hard to see a way back for them now, really, after that loss to Norwich.
Yeah, I think there's sort of. I'm going to talk a little bit about Southampton in a moment, but you get to this part of the season and it's about momentum, and you think that Ipswich definitely have got a little bit of momentum behind them. I mean, in that first game, I was really pleased to see Coburn celebrating scoring.
Yeah,
He
thank
didn't hold
God.
back on it. Didn't hold
Yeah.
back, because that's one of the things that really floats my boats. That is that when players play against the next team and don't celebrate, it's just so irritating. But yeah, that game, Millwall, Norwich, not to be discounted. I think next season they're definitely going to be a
Oh,
dark horse to
100%.
get into the, because they've got a good manager there in Clement, and this guy Mohamed Toure, he's only played 4 games for him, and he scored 4 goals, and he set up both goals for them on Monday. He looks like a
Right.
really interesting player. Born in Adelaide, I think, or certainly lived for a long time in Adelaide,
Yeah,
and
yeah, he's an Aussie
played for
international.
yeah, he's played for the under-23s and the full international team. So interesting. I'll try and, if I can, catch some of the games for Norwich over the weekend and into next week, because I mean, it's a good result. They really did show their mettle when they went to Middlesbrough to come from behind and win there. So to then lose to Norwich, I think that just shows how good Norwich are, rather than any weaknesses in Millwall. But I do think they've
Yeah.
lost a little bit of momentum to Ipswich. What do you think, George?
Yeah, I agree. I think you both put the nail on the head there. I think Ipswich, it's really in their hands now, really. 2 games in hand, and, if they win both of them, they're in the driving seat, aren't they? Even, they could be in shout of the title being 6 points behind them, but I think Coventry are just too good at the minute to stop them. But in terms of Norwich, I think I completely agree with you. I don't think that's a blip for Millwall. I just think that's the quality and how good Norwich are. And I think it's a real shame that, you know, Liam Manning, who's now at Huddersfield in League One, stayed at Norwich for such a long amount of time, because if they got Felipe Clement in quicker, they'd be in the playoffs now. The form they're on is an absolute joke. Compared to what they were on at the start of the season, they just kept losing and losing. I don't think they won their first 9 home games or something like that, wasn't it? It was
Yeah, they
absolutely
were in real
bonkers.
trouble. Yeah,
They were in real trouble. Yeah, people were saying about relegation, which is just crazy to think with Norwich. But yeah, I mean, in terms of Millwall, I love that Coburn, his celebration for, especially the second one he gave it. He got the ball for the first one, and then, well, he didn't get the ball. He had a celebration, ran back, and then the second one he gave absolute beans, which I absolutely loved because, as you said, Sterling, for a former Middlesbrough player, and he's been quality for them. I think recently as well. He's definitely been scoring the goals and being a crucial player for them. And I saw the other week, I think he only cost £5 million, and I think that's really coming in as a bargain at the minute, the way he's performing. But yeah, I mean, it went from sort of delight to back to reality, as you said, Sterling, for Millwall. But it's a damaging result for Middlesbrough, but they did. They are without winning 5 now, so I don't know about Middlesbrough and Millwall's defeat to Norwich. It's just looking in Ipswich's hands now, to be honest. But
Yeah,
we'll have to wait and see.
as Dad said, it's momentum at this stage of the season now, and even for the teams that are going to be going into the playoffs, that is a big thing. But Borough, I
Yeah,
think, as you said, that run of forms just killed them at this stage of the season. They needed to push on. And you look at the good teams or the top teams in the divisions, like take Lincoln, for example, they've been consistent in the running and they've gone on to be promoted, right, in League One. And then you look at Southampton, who are now getting into the playoffs. Like these teams that are doing really well, Coventry, for example, in Championship, teams that are excelling, they've had momentum throughout the crunch period. And Borough, that's just the complete opposite. But I just quickly looked at Ipswich's games in hand and their remaining games, because it is in their hand, but they've got to play, I think their games in hand are Charlton on a Wednesday night and Pompey away, which are 2 games that
Hey,
they'd expect to win. They do have to play Norwich themselves, Middlesbrough, have got to play Ipswich as well, and they got to play Saints. So few tough games in there. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think it's thoroughly in their hand. But Dad, you wanted to speak about the Saints last night? Absolutely
Yeah,
dismantling Wrexham.
yeah. I had that on rather than the Real Madrid Bayern game. In hindsight, I probably turned it off when it got to 5-1, but I just left it on. But yeah, they dismantled Wrexham. I mean, they caught Wrexham cold. Went 2-0 up. So it could have been more than that if it wasn't for the Wrexham goalkeeper. He really kept him in it. And they looked like they'd come back into it at one stage when Windass got them back into it just before half time. But they went back out in the second half and just took them apart, really. Set pieces played a big part in Southampton's win. But they got some good players, Southampton. I was watching, having watched that game and the FA Cup game, can't help but be impressed by players like Manning, who plays left back, I think.
Man.
Ben Downs, and make sure I don't butcher this. It's the guy at Harwood Bellis. I remember when last season at the Amex, I was quite impressed with him because Southampton, I think, drew, didn't they, at the Amex, and he was
0-0.
responsible for them sort of stemming the tide of what had been a run of really dreadful results. So, yeah, I mean, I've always said you look at the table and you look at goal difference, and if you look at goal difference, that gives you a much more accurate idea about what the strengths and weaknesses are of a club. And the fact that they've got plus 19, which is fourth in the table, I think shows you that they're going to be a playoff team for sure. And if we say that Middlesbrough will probably be a second one and Mill a third, Wrexham are going to be struggling to catch Hull at this stage, I think, with only 5 games of the season to go. But, if the season had gone on for another 5 games, you would have put Norwich in that bracket as well. Because I think
100%.
they're more than capable of getting into their next season. To be honest with you, if Millwall don't go up this season, I think they're going to be firm favourites to go up next season because now that they've got this lease on the ground that they've signed, 999-year lease that they've signed with Lambeth Council, they're basically going to be really, really rich club because they've already signed a deal to sell off some of the land for housing, which is going to net them more money than they've ever had in their history, I think. So, you're thinking about teams in the Premier League and go back to that original conversation about West Ham. If West Ham go down and they have to sell players, which they would have to anyway, but, if they have to then sell players that they might want to try and keep to stay in the Championship, there's absolutely no chance they will come back up. None. Because there are just too many good teams in this division. And let's say Millwall don't go up and Norwich obviously not going to get into the playoffs. Those 2 teams will be favourites to come up next season, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, because actually, I completely agree with your statement about Norwich. If they had 5 extra games, I think they'd be in the playoffs because they're just brilliant at the minute. And then Southampton, obviously, this result was on top of the Arsenal game, which I spoke about. This sort of just put the icing on the cake, really, didn't it? It was absolutely incredible. I mean, 5 different goal scorers as well, which is just showing how the goals were spread across the pitch. Lauren, I think I spoke about a couple of weeks. He's been brilliant since he came in. As he said, Flynn Downs scored. Finn Azaz, he was with the Irish national team in the international break, and Shay Charles got an assist, who obviously got the winner in the Arsenal game. Ross Stewart as well, back in the goals. They got some great players in there, and Todd Narek, it's working wonders. I mean, about the playoffs, I think Southampton won't be stopped at the minute, to be honest. They just look too good to be with a game in hand as well. They look hard to be stopped, and I think it's just between Wrexham and Hull, to be honest. I think Southampton are just too good to stop, especially if they win their game in hand. I can only see it going one way, but between a few teams in that playoff race, it is very tight. So it'll be interesting to see who them final 4 playoff teams are going to be come the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting away from the playoffs, but a team that at the beginning of the season it looked like was going to be in and amongst it is Bristol City. George, you wanted to speak about them because we haven't mentioned that Roy Hodgson's gone in there as caretaker manager, and he's had 2 wins in 2, hasn't he?
Yeah, incredible from the 78-year-old. I mean, I'm absolutely bewildered that he's back in management again. You keep thinking he's going to stop, and then he somehow returns. And I've got some stats from Sky Sports, which I just think are crazy about how just how mental this appointment really is. I mean, he's the current oldest manager in the top 2 leagues across what we call the big 5 leagues in Europe, from France, Germany, Spain, Italy, and etc. etc. And the oldest head coach in the top 4 leagues in the EFL and the Prem that we cover, Ian Holloway, coming close at 63. So he's got a 15 year lead, which I don't think he'll be proud of, alongside Steve Evans at Bristol Rovers, who are both 63. But this is the longest gap between 2 stints at the same club in the Football League history. He last managed the club back in 1982.
Crazy.
Which is a long way before my time, obviously, and I don't know if you remember it, Si. Back in the day, Roy Hodgson getting the
No.
Bristol City players ready.
No, I remember the first time he came to my attention really was when he was successful in Swedish football, yeah, with Malmo.
All right.
And obviously he went to Liverpool at one stage and was a complete non-fit there. Yeah, I mean, it does make you wonder, young up-and-coming coaches, how they're supposed to get into football if Bristol City are turning to someone. Although, all credit to him, but I mean, he's not really got that much of a history with Bristol City.
No, he was
I
there
was
for like a
really
year, wasn't
surprised
he?
that it came out. Yeah, really surprised that it came out when it came out of on the news that he was going to go there. I think Bristol City's, best player is the keeper. From what I remember watching them playing, that Radet
Vitek.
Vitek, who's on loan
Yeah.
from United, and I think they got any ambitions of competing with the teams that we've been talking about in terms of maybe Middlesbrough, Millwall, and Norwich. He's the sort of player they're going to have to try and convince United that they want to keep hold of. But I don't want to delve into the United goalkeeping situation, but I think United quite like the idea of bringing him back to be an understudy to Lemons, because I think they want to get rid of everybody else there that's a potential goalkeeper that's on loan. So, but yeah, I mean, that's an interesting appointment. I think some Bristol City supporters said that if he could get a run together, they might get into the playoff picture, but there's absolutely no chance of that happening.
I saw Sir Alex was saying to Roy Hodgson basically that he's mental for going in there at his age, and I think he's already come out and said that there's no chance it's going to be permanent, but
Oh, yeah, he
it's just
said.
going to be weathering the storm, I think, because as I said, they were right up there at the beginning, and actually I can see why the Bristol City fans in recent weeks have been so annoyed to drop down all the way into 11th.
Yeah, you can understand why, and 2023 league matches since Roy Hodgson was sacked back in the day. That's how many games they've played since he's returned, and he's back with 2 wins. Three goals they scored in the 2 games. It was a 2-1 away win at Charlton and a 1-0 home win at Sheffield United, which I think was the game which really brought Vitek to light. He kept a clean sheet, and I think he made 9 or 10 saves and got man of the match. So can understand why he's been brought up, and he's been brilliant this season before that. But Scott Twine, Noah Ellie were the 2 goal scorers in the Charlton game, and Mark Skies scored the only goal in the Sheffield United game. But yeah, as he said, sitting in 11th with 6 games to go, 7 points off the playoffs, just a little too late for me. Obviously, you got teams around him with incredible momentum at the minute, so there's no chance for me that they're going to catch that pack, to be honest.
Yeah, agreed. We'll move on to League One now. and we've had the first promotion in the EFL. I believe it's the first promotion at this stage anyway. Lincoln have been promoted to the Championship for the first time in 65 years. And what a way to do it as well. Away at Reading, I think a draw was good enough. They went 1-0
Yeah.
up. Reading captain whipped in a free kick. And then 90 plus 6 minutes for the winner to seal promotion. Looked like absolute carnage in the away end. And just
Unreal.
what a way to do it. They completely deserve it. I said about, when it's been crunch time in these divisions, momentum's important. They went and beat Cardiff. Cardiff went off the rails and they've just stayed steady doing what they do best, which is picking up results and being a really good football team. Isn't that right, Dad?
Yeah. Scubala there, their manager, he's did a long apprenticeship in football before he took over at Lincoln. He was coaching at the FA at places like Coventry and Forest. He was Leeds under-21 coach. I think he took charge of Leeds when they were in between managers at Old Trafford for a game. But that was really his only experience of being a first-team manager.
Right.
Interesting to read about their history in so much as what he's brought to the club, really, and he's really into futsal. And he
Right.
likes those players that are technically good as well as tactically. What's the word I'm looking for? Adept. They can change the way they're playing. They're not into, going back to what we were saying about Arsenal. He doesn't get them playing into rigid structures. So when they need to change things, they're quite tactically aware. They can change the situation. And apparently they make quite a lot of use of AI to work out what they're going to do at set pieces, so corners and free kicks, for example. So it'd be interesting to see what their journey is in next season in the Championship, because as you said, Sterling, 65 years since they last played at that level. Traditionally, really been a division, what we now call Division 2 and Division 3 team for a lot of their history, and not really played at that level for a long time. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do.
Yeah, it is going to be a challenge. It's a step up. We know it's a step up, but they do seem like a really well-run club, and that's shown this season because Cardiff were the front runners for a long time, but Lincoln have stayed on their tail and just at times even gone under the radar, even being, as I said, right on their tails, just gone under the radar, steadily going about their business, picking up results, and they have been the best side in this division. They've just been consistent from start to finish, and they pick up great results like this. Reading are no mugs, and they pick up great results like this. They went away to Cardiff and beat them. They come up clutch in the last minutes. Like, they completely deserve this, and it's great to see. As I said, it was carnage in that away end, and yeah, I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be a joyful watch in the Championship next season. I really do.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Congratulations to them. Absolutely incredible achievement because no one had them. Well, especially me. I didn't have them anywhere near my thoughts of being even near the playoffs this season, to be honest. I mean, absolutely incredible rise. I don't think many fans would have expected this to happen. And, they'll probably, well, they should go on to win the League One title as well. And, 12 points clear. Incredible scenes to beat Reading, which is a really damaging result for them in their push to be in
Yeah,
the
I was going to say
playoffs
that.
because that really did affect them. A point would have been all right, but that loss after Plymouth won away at Barnsley, I'm pretty sure, and Stevenage won as well. It put them. It put them a step back from being in them playoff places come the end of the season, but it just shows how well of how well Lincoln are playing. 96th minute, they look down and out. A point would have been enough, but they won't go on. We'll make this day even more special for the away fans in the 96th minute. And yeah, incredible finish on the counter attack from Moylan. Great finish to send the fans absolutely mad. And what a moment for the club. And yeah, massive congratulations to him. Incredible moment.
Yeah, you're right about Reading as well. I was going to mention that they are 2 points off Stevenage in the playoff places, and Stevenage have 2 games in hand on them. And the team above them, you mentioned Plymouth, they've got a game in hand as well. So I think that really is going to be a massive kick to the teeth, and potentially I'll probably put most of my eggs in this basket, be them down and out, because we've been saying, haven't we, how close that is, and we were saying they're one of the teams in there to potentially sneak in, but the longer it goes on and the further it goes on in this running, it's going to shape up. We're going to end up seeing who it's going to be, right? There's going to be 4 teams, can only be 4 teams, and it's just looking further and further away from them now.
I think those teams in third, fourth, and fifth are locked in. I can't see them being caught.
No, we said that, didn't we? It's going to be last.
Stevenage have got Bradford and Bolton in the next couple of games, so they could be caught. But you would have thought probably if anybody's going to catch them, it's going to be Plymouth.
Yeah, they're incredible at the minute.
They're doing really well at the moment. Huddersfield look like they're dropping without a stone. But you were going to talk, George, about a good weekend for Luton because they've sort of put themselves back in it, just on the fringes of it, I think.
Yeah, incredible 2 results for Lincoln, which I picked out across this bank holiday weekend. A 2-1 home win at Peterborough, and then thumping Luton away from home. Thumping Wimbledon away from home. 3-0. 2 huge wins on the bounce, as you said, Simon. And the first one was on the Friday. Josh Keeley made an early save after Jake Richards put the 1-0 up in 20 minutes. So that made sure there wasn't an instant response, which I think was a key factor in the game, because just after half time, 50th minute, Jordan Clark, he was playing in the Premier League for Luton. He's still with him in League One, and he's adding to his tally. I think he's having a really good season. I can't remember his stats, but whenever I go on to Luton's games, he's always having some sort of involvement. But Peterborough got one back from Jimmy J. Morgan with 15 minutes to go, plus added time, but it wasn't enough to get an equaliser. That was the first game, and then a comfortable win away at Wimbledon. It was 1-0 at half time from Casey Palmer, opened the score in 12 minutes, and then 3-0 at full time, thanks to a goal from 18-year-old Jake Richards, who's having as I said, cracking season from him. I think he's got 5 goals, 3 assists, if I remember off the top of my head. Can't remember fully. And then El Hamadi, who used to play for Wimbledon, is the reason why he got a big move to Ipswich, I think 2 seasons ago. He scored against his former club and sealed the win in a clean sheet. But Luton's opposition, Wimbledon never need to look over their shoulder, really, and both sides do, because they're only 4 points away from the relegation zone, and Peterborough in a similar situation, just a point above them in 13th, 5 points away. So Luton's opposition across the bank holiday weekend need to look over their shoulder and watch such a congested bottom 4 near that bottom end of the League One table. It's so congested down there, anything can happen, really. But they need to look forward to their trip to Wembley, saying they got Stockport County at Wembley in the EFL Trophy final, so have to keep an eye out on that. But season 3 points outside the playoff places. Do you think they can sneak into a playoff spot? Is the question for me.
I think they could, but I don't think they will. To keep it short and sweet, as you said, I think Plymouth would be the one that I think might sneak in there. Potentially Huddersfield as well.
Huddersfield, I think, are too inconsistent, drawing too many games recently. So you've got to be winning games. So it is really, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams for one place, I think. At the other end of the table, you're right to pick out Leighton and Wimbledon need to look over their shoulders, George, but there's a lot of other clubs below them before we get to Exeter and on 46 points. So a lot of things would need to go wrong for them to get sucked into it. But Wimbledon's recent record, 5 losses and a draw in the last 6 games, it'd really be, if they had a couple of points less than they have got at the moment, you really would worry about them.
Yeah, exactly. We're of course for concern, and it's up to 13th really, in the League One table, where there is a huge gap. I agree with you about Peterborough. They've got a lot of teams that would have to win games for them to be in the drop zone and drop down to as far as 20th if all comes to worse. But I don't know, it's so congested down there. I mean, I think Rotherham, Northampton and Port Vale are down and out, but Exeter to Peterborough is really who is going to be in there, to be honest. I think based off of the form, if they can't find that spark, I think Wimbledon might sneak in there, to be honest. The way they're performing, as you just said, Simon, without a winning 6 and 5 of those games have been losses, so it's going to be a cracking end to the season at the bottom of the League One table, so I have to keep an eye out for it.
Absolutely. We'll move on to League Two. Dad and I, we actually picked out the same team, but both their games, which is Cambridge. On Friday, I believe it was 1-1 draw to Swindon, which wasn't the
Thursday.
worst result. Was it on the Thursday?
Yeah, it was a bad result because they absolutely dominated Swindon right from the get-go. And it was one of those games where you thought, I cannot believe what I've just seen.
I meant in terms of the table, though. When you're
I
looking
don't
at
think
the
they
same.
would be, not necessarily losing sleep over dropping points. But, I mean, there's no way they should have drawn that game. They were on top all the game long. Holloway kept throwing substitutes on, hoping something would change, and then finally, in the 90th minute, they grabbed an completely undeserved equaliser, completely undeserved. But fair play to Holloway. I mean, he kept pulling the levers, hoping to change the story, and it was a good goal that Joel McGregor scored, first time finish. But they brought a good following to Cambridge Swindon, and they were looking really glum-faced with the longer the game went on.
Yeah, I think they would have been feeling that on Monday as well, because they got another 90 plus 1 minute equaliser scored against them. But this one, even more gut wrenching, I think, because not only was it an own goal, but it was against Cheltenham, who are sitting in 19th, and they would have 100% thought to themselves that has to be a win and should be a win. When I said about the Swindon result, not a bad result on paper because they're a side close to them. Obviously, on the day they should have got the result, as you're saying. But this 19th place, they got to be beating them, and they've missed a chance to go into the automatic places. So it's really poor. On top of that, Cheltenham didn't even have a shot on target. It was an own goal from the goalkeeper. They didn't
That's
have a shot on
criminal.
target, and Cambridge have come away from that with only a point. They remain 2 points off Notts County. The saving grace for Cambridge, I think, and I think we probably all agree that they deserve to be in there throughout the season, is that they have a game in hand. So they'll be needing to win that game in hand to go a point above County. But two missed opportunities there, I think.
100%. 2 massive missed opportunities, especially in that Cheltenham game, as you're both saying. I mean, how can you not have a shot on target and get a point? I mean, proper smash and grab from Steve Cottrell's Cheltenham side. I mean, it's such a damaging result for Cambridge, that. I mean, because of, I think I saw Swindon won in the last minute because Fletcher Harmon got a goal and assist off the bench, former Eastbourne Borough player, so I always keep an eye out for him. And Notts County won as well, even though they lost a game before. They bounced back with a win. And more importantly, Bromley won their game in hand last night against Shrewsbury. Came from 1-0 down, I think, and 1-2-1 yesterday night. So that was a huge win for Bromley, which has put them 7 points clear at the top. So I think, Salford to MK Dons are really thinking about remaining in them automatic spots unless, Bromley have an absolute disastrous fall off come the end of the season. But 6th to 2nd is split by 3 points. I think the key thing, and we always say it's goal difference. You know, Salford, I don't think will get in there, but the reason I don't think that is because they got the worst goal difference by 12 goals. You know, it's that compact in there that goal difference is going to be a real key factor, in my opinion.
It's almost
And
like an extra point.
it is. It really is. You know, there's no way they're going to come back from that. And Swindon at 8 points off of Cambridge as well. So no, go on, Si.
I was just going to say, the thing about Salford is they don't draw many games. If you look at their recent run, I think it's 4
only
wins
drawn
and
4
2
games all
draws.
season.
Yeah, so I mean that's complete opposite of Cambridge, really. 14 draws.
Right.
So it just goes to show you can compete at these upper levels of the division if you sacrifice sort of points and the trying to get all three. So I think they've got every chance, personally. You're really looking at Chesterfield in 7th, down to maybe Barnet in 11th. But Barnet have got a lot of teams in front of them.
You said no chance last week. Don't say that.
Yeah, no, I don't think they have got a chance. I think Grimsby are the team. They got the games in hand. I think they've got through at the weekend, and they've got the game in hand against Grimsby. So I think that would be a deciding against Chesterfield. Sorry, that would be a deciding sequence of games for them, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking more towards the bottom end of the table, but a team that's actually pulled themselves away from it. So I remember speaking about them in a sort of relegation clash not too long ago. It's Bristol Rovers. 2 good results on the bank holiday weekend and really good run of form under new manager Steve Evans. Isn't that right, George?
Yeah, it's just their form's come too little too late because the run of form they're on is absolutely crazy. I'll speak about that in a minute, but yeah, they got 2 wins. First one was against Bristol Rovers, 1-0. Smash and grab win, sort of similar to Cheltenham.
Against Fleetwood, you mean?
Oh, I keep doing that, don't I? I keep saying the same team. Against Fleetwood, 1-0 win, and Fleetwood absolutely dominated in this game, and it was a proper smash and grab. 2.43 XG they had, and Bristol Rovers had 0.67, and Joe Quickly off the bench got the only goal of the game in the 66th minute to get a win and it must have been a colossal clean sheet because having that much XG, you would imagine Fleetwood would have been really on top. So to not score would have been a real shock, to be honest, to fans watching the stadium. But yesterday's game was not yesterday's game on the Monday. It was a huge win, 5-goal thriller against a relegation threatened Harrogate, who remain bottom of the table because of this result. But Ellis Taylor got a brace for Harrogate, but in between his goals, Shakai Ford equalised, and he's a quality player in my opinion. He's only got 3 goals, 3 assists, but if you actually watch him as a player, he always causes loads and loads of problems. And at 21, I can see him doing bits in League 2 next season if he stays there, because I think he joined late on in the season. But and then obviously the brace his goal got cancelled out by the Ellis Taylor goal to make it 2-1 at half time, as I said. But then Ellis Harrison off the bench earned himself a brace, 61st and 79th minute. Absolutely brilliant from him off the bench. To replace Joe Quickly, he scored in the game against Fleetwood, as I said, but he proved his point why he should be starting, and he got himself a brace and got a huge away win for them. But in their last 10 games, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to speak about it. And even though they're nowhere near the relegation zone now, or nowhere near the playoffs, they've had, in the last 10 games, 1 defeat, 8 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. I mean, a relegation threatened side a few months ago, as he said, Stern, and that's title winning form, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy, but just come too little too late for them under Steve Evans. He's evidently made a cracking impact there, but Fleetwood, you're talking about their opponents. Fleetwood are just 3 points above them, so they got nothing to play for themselves. But Harrogate remain bottom of the league because of this result. So I'm not sure if they can get out of it, but it's very congested down there. But 19 points away from the drop zone and 16 away from the playoffs. So literally no chance of anything happening at all. So just see if they can continue this form until the end of the season. And if they do, me personally, I'll be putting into my considerations to be in and around the playoffs, because that sort of run of form, taking that into next season, it's only going to be positive.
Yeah, I mean, they've
Yeah.
really done well to pull themselves out of that situation, haven't they?
Yeah.
Their next game is actually against Crawley on Saturday, and Crawley desperately need the points under Kazim Richards. So it just shows you the power of putting together a sequence of results. It just transforms your season. And the key thing is they're winning games, not
Mm.
drawing games.
Well,
There's
bounce.
no point picking up the odd point here or there. You've got to be winning games at this stage of the season, I think, to make that difference. So it'd be interesting
Yeah.
to see if Crawley can drag themselves out of the mess they're in at the bottom there.
Absolutely, as you say, it's really, really tight. So I think it's going to go down to the final day in League Two, to be honest, both for relegation and playoffs. But we'll move on to non-league and the National League. We spoke in quite good length last week about Jermaine Defoe joining up with Woking. And his first two games, well, the first one definitely didn't disappoint. He had 2 draws in his first 2 Woking games. 3-3 draw with Eastleigh and a 0-0 draw against Braintree. I think they'll be fairly content with the draw away at Eastleigh. Their side's kind of in and around them. But Braintree, they're like quite close to the relegation zone or the bottom, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Relegated.
they're relegated.
Yeah, they're down. Yeah, been relegated.
Oh yeah, that's official, isn't it? Yeah, that is. Sorry, my brain slipped me there, but yeah, exactly. They would have eyed that up as 3 points. They really would have done. So bit of a poor result there. Speaking to my Woking mate, said the players are looking tired. So I think it's going to be tough for Defoe to really get anything going quite
Yeah, I agree.
solidified at
Yeah,
this season. He just needs
yeah,
to kind
yeah.
of gel with the squad and then go again, because they're not going to get playoffs. They're comfortably away from relegation or any danger of being pulled into that. So just got to kind of implement his style. It was quite funny because he said his style was balanced and hard to beat, and then his first game was 3-0 against Eastleigh. So bit of irony there, but yeah, that Braintree game, as you say, George, relegated now. I knew they were in and amongst it. I did know that they'd gone down. Slipped my mind there, but it's even more reason that, they should have gone and won that game, Woking, really, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's been, that Eastleigh game, they should have really lost, but they showed great fight to come back from 3-1 down and grab themselves a point against Eastleigh, who are just above the relegation zone themselves. But I think after next week, if they grab a win, they will be safe. So I think the bottom four is going to stay as it is, to be honest. We'll probably be speaking about Morecambe and Brackley being relegated down to step 6 next week or the week after, because they are in serious trouble and Eastleigh have, sort of dragged themselves away from it. But Woking, 2 points from a possible 6. I mean, I completely agree with you, Stan. They've not got a lot to play for, and that's what I said when I spoke about Jermaine Defoe coming in. I thought it was a smart appointment because they're in a situation where they're staying up and they're not getting promoted, so you may as well see how it goes under him, how the football's being played, what sort of results they're getting. But that Braintree result is a lot more of a weaker result than that Eastleigh result, which was all right.
But even just looking at the league table now, I didn't realise Eastleigh had been pulled that much into that scrap. I know
Yeah,
they were in and amongst Woking for the best part of the whole season, but now they're right in and amongst it. So even that, they probably should have got 2 wins, and you're looking at their recent form. But again, I think it goes back to the players looking really tired and just fatigued, and mentally probably on the beach. It's taken a lot out of them. It's a long old season, so yeah, it was. It's an interesting one, but something definitely worth talking about. We'll have to keep an eye on Jermaine Defoe there, because I think it's a very interesting setup now, actually. But we mentioned
The other
Braintree.
team, Braintree and Truro, the other team, both got relegated at the weekend.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we picked necessarily Braintree out to go down, but I think we all said Truro were really going to struggle.
Yeah.
Not least because of the geography of the place, So it's no real surprise to see them go down, but they gave it a good go.
Did
Braintree,
they?
yeah, I think so. There's some decent results. I think they didn't have a good result when they went to Gateshead. It was sort of the longest away game of
Yeah,
in
I drew.
the football pyramid, and they managed to draw. So I didn't disgrace themselves finishing bottom. But I
No,
think
they
you're
didn't
right. That
embarrass themselves, which I think would have been the main thing, to be fair. They're not
yeah,
that far behind, which I think's, to be honest, with, the situation that they're in was an achievement in itself. Obviously, getting relegated. Poor,
yeah,
and they'll be back in National League South next season, as well as Braintree. Obviously, breaking Worthing's heart, so hopefully they swap over and all of us as having soft spots for Worthing get get a little upper hand for the Rebels. But yeah, I mean, Braintree have been so inconsistent. That's the reason why. Well, evidently they're getting relegated back to the National League South, and it's the same with Truro, to be honest. But don't know what you think, Sterling. But they've just both been just shocking this season, to be honest, and it's the reason why they're getting relegated.
Yeah, well, it's the reason why I questioned it when you said they give it a good go of it. I don't disagree that they've not embarrassed themselves. I don't think they have embarrassed themselves, but they've just been there the whole season.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of the ones at the start of the season where you could call, and then even 10 games in, you just knew that it was going to be a long, long old season for them. So it's no real surprise. Braintree, I can't really say too much about them. We're looking at the National League as a whole each week and picking out different games to speak about, but they've been one of the teams that's just not really had anything to speak about going throughout the season. They've not pulled up any logs, obviously, and they're going down. So I can't really say I'm massively surprised there.
No, not really. I mean, I'm just looking at their squad now, and it just looks full of youngsters at the minute. That's like a really young team, which is, one of the reasons why Eastbourne Borough fans, which we'll speak in a minute, are so annoyed about the situation they've been in the National League South. Their squad is so young, and being without that experience is such a key factor in leagues like this, where you got players and teams like Rochdale, Carlisle, Scunthorpe, Southend. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be a real effect
Yeah.
on how the players are playing if they're going to places like Southend, which you've both been to. It's a huge stadium with a good following for this division compared to teams like Brackley, who get barely 700 people every week. And they got, I'm just looking at it here, 21-year-olds and a 20-year-old at centre half. It's going to affect them, isn't it? So
Yeah, it's a good point. But looking at the top of the table, there's real shock and a real bit of movement with Rochdale dropping points, and York picking up two wins over the bank holiday weekend, going top of the table. 1-0 win away at Boston, and then 2-1 against Altrincham, wasn't it, George?
yeah, it's put them in the driving seat really. But that last game of the season is it's just hotting up. York versus Rochdale. I cannot
That's
wait
it.
for that game. Because it's put them 2 points clear, but anything can happen now to the end of the season. But these two results are huge because Rochdale dropped points, which I'll get onto in a minute. But Ben Brooks with the only goal just after half time for York. York's win away at Boston to keep a clean sheet as well. And at the time, they were on top of the National League National League table on goal difference. So that had the fans absolutely buzzing. I saw that on their Instagram, but they would have been even more happy because then at home, a last-minute winner from Fagan Walcott in the 96th minute, absolutely incredible, sent the fans into absolute raptures, really. Headed it past Luke Hutchison and goal for Altrincham to send them top of the league by 2 points. Jimmy Knowles scored Altringham's goal to put York 1-0 down, but York responded 2 minutes later through an Oliver Banks goal just before the break. But Jimmy Knowles wanted to give him a shout out for Altrincham, even though they're quite lower mid-table sort of team this season. One of the reasons why I haven't spoken about him, but he's their top goal scorer with 11 goals and 6 assists to add to that. So very impressed with that. And then Banks himself has got 7 goals and 9 assists for York. So seeing why they're making an impact, but that Fagan Walcott goal, oh my God, the scenes, that's absolutely crazy if you haven't seen them. But it would have been that extra special because Rochdale lost to Morecambe on the Friday and they drew away to Hartlepool 0-0. So it saw York go 2 points clear, and it's 3 wins on the bounce for York. Just 1 defeat in their last 7 games. So both sides York have faced comfortably in the league for next season. Altrincham in 16th, Boston in 15th. So you might go too much into detail about both of them two, but in the situation York are in, I think they will go on to win it. I don't know what you both think.
Yeah, I think that was one of the most surprising results of the entire season. Rochdale losing at home to Morecambe.
Morecambe, yeah.
They went 1-0 up Rochdale and looked like it was just going to be a routine victory, but then Morecambe got 2 goals either side of half time, then a third. They sort of roused themselves a little bit, Rochdale, and got themselves back into it at 3-2, but then Morecambe went up the other end and made it 4-2. I think that really does put York in the box seat, doesn't it? I mean, their remaining games are Tamworth and Yeovil, so you'd expect them to win those, and then the game against Rochdale to finish it off. But yeah, I think that is the result that is going to come back to haunt Rochdale at the end of the season, getting beat at home by an already relegated Morecambe.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that York are in pole position, but again, it does just come down to that game. It's almost going to be like a playoff final. It
Yeah,
is.
it
So
really is.
I don't think it really, as long as each team is in the tie, in the sense of if they win the league, I don't think it really matters so much. Rochdale, obviously, they're going to be disappointed. That's crazy. Probably the result of the season, shock wise. For Morecambe to go and beat Rochdale is just crazy after everything that's been going on with them. But as long as they'll be thinking, as long as we go to that game knowing we win and we win the title, then I think they'll be happy with it, because I don't think either team, regardless, even if Rochdale were first, I don't think they would be going into it saying, "Oh, we're just playing for a point here." I think
Yeah,
both teams are going to be going to win that, because
yeah,
you can't risk by going and playing within yourself and then playing for a point and then going 1-0, 2-0 down, and then what? Then you got to go for it. In those games, you've got to be brave, haven't you? So I think it really is just still so just in the air.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they both would expect to win the remaining 2 games for that final game of the season, and it is at Rochdale. So yeah, it's going to be a massive, massive game of football. That, because I think you're right. I think they're both going to be separated by 2 points at most.
Yeah.
So
And the Rochdale fans will be bang up for that. So
yeah.
we'll have to
I
wait and
think
see.
I think a prime example of why that won't be the case, whoever's top goes into a low block. I think that National League sort of game between Wrexham and Notts County, where
Exactly.
I think the prime example of the reason that is because I think one of the 2 teams was 2 points clear at the time. The game was, if you watched the game, it was end to end for the full 90 minutes. And it just looks like both teams wanted to put themselves in the driving seat, because I think there was another couple of games after that as well. So I think I can't see it being any different between these 2 sides. Who, it's just great. We won't rabbit on about the free up campaign, but it's just mental that both of these sides might not go up next season. I think it's just absolutely crazy because they both deserve to.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move it on to National League South. Absolutely massive, massive result for the Rebels against Dorking. Worthing Dorking, or Dorking Worthing, should we say? It was the tie of the season, really, at Meadowbank on, what was it, Easter Monday? Yeah, that was it. It wasn't on the Friday, and sold out. 600 Worthing fans there. Meadowbank completely sold out. It looked like cracking atmosphere. They had their banners, they had balloons, Dorking, and really it was just a quality game. There was great passages of play, great saves, 3 great goals. Charlie Carter with the goal for Dorking to send them 1-0 up. And as I said, the atmosphere, everything about it was just an advocate for National League South. It was really, really good. But Worthing, I'm delighted to say, came out on top. Razak Coleman de Graaf was causing them problems all game, Dorking. And Harrison Folks in goal made some really, really good saves. So did that Taylor Seymour for Worthing. One unbelievable save.
When he tips it onto the bar.
Yeah, he tipped it onto the bars. People that haven't gone and watched these highlights, go do yourself a favour. You enjoy it. It's about 5 minutes worth of quality football. Yeah, Razak Coleman de Graaf with the equaliser, and then Moulton with the winner on loan from Watford, isn't he? For Worthing. Absolute finish. Smashed it, laces into the top left hand corner. Hits the cold celebration in front of the Worthing fans, and it was absolute carnage. You could see them, beers flying everywhere. Just absolute limbs, and you know, that's what it's all about. What a goal to score at that time of the season, in that game, at that time in the match. Absolute bang. Like, it's crazy. Amazing goal, amazing result for Worthing, sends them top. And as I said about the goal difference, it's almost like they've got an extra point because they're level on points now, Dorking and Worthing, but Worthing have got far superior goal difference, so they're in first position. I think both managers did themselves justice in the way they spoke about the other side and covered themselves in glory, really. They're both really full of praise for each other and each other's sides. And, you know, Mark White was saying Worthing, they deserved it, and they've been brilliant. And, you know, Adam Hinshelwood said the same thing. Dorking, they played a really good game, made it hard for them, but it was just those moments of quality, I think, that separated the two. And I think Worthing did deserve it based on the highlights. They had more chances, but it really could have gone either way, to be completely honest. I do think it's very similar as well to the National League situation, not in the sense that they got to play each other, but I wouldn't say this is done. I don't know about you guys, but I would not say this is done. Worthing have got far superior goal difference, but they're joint on points. Worthing have got a tough run. They've got to play Dagenham, Maidstone, and someone else that is right up there. Yeah, exactly. And Dorking have got to play, I think, Enfield, or they've got to play a couple teams that are down the bottom.
Got Tottenham next.
Tottenham
next, who are without a manager. It's hard to call, to be honest. I think Dorking have the better fixtures by
they do
quite a distance.
100%. They've got the easier run, so it's not done at all. This, but Worthing now in pole position. I'd love to see him go and win it. I really would. I think they deserve it. They've been brilliant since Hinshelwood come in, and this result just. I think these are the two best teams in the division, and they've gone and beaten them in their own backyard. They've done the double over them. I think for that reason they deserve it. Trying to be completely unbiased because I like Dorking as well, but yeah, I don't know what you guys think.
No, yeah, but I think this is just such a statement victory for Worthing. I was buzzing for them because going away to Dorking, sold out Meadowbank, you know, it was all really in Dorking's favour. But the reason Dorking are in the situation they're in is their momentum has just dropped off a cliff. Injuries have really affected them, but you can't really blame the injuries when, you know, you're front runners and you're losing 3 out of your last 5 games. And then Worthing have pounced on that and won 4 out of their last 5. You know, it's just how Worthing have got back into the title race after they looked down and out. And near the bottom place of the playoffs. So it's just crazy for Worthing that they've got themselves back into it. I didn't think they would. And fans were unhappy with Inchwood at that Tunbridge Angels game, telling to
Yeah,
leave. And I
I was
think
saying I
that's
was going
just
to talk about that. I thought the turnaround from that performance has been stark, really. So
Yeah.
I really do hope they get promoted because we talked about wanting to go and see games in the National League, and if they're hosting them, we've got half a chance of seeing some of those National League teams that we've been talking about. One of the teams that's coming up into that division, interesting, is Waltham and Hersham. They're one of the two teams. I think, what was the other team, George, that got promoted? Oh, no,
Folkestone.
they're the other.
Upstone Invicta,
Yeah,
yeah.
Folkestone, yeah. But Walton and Hersham, interesting, digging into their history a little bit in anticipation of talking about them a bit more next season. But
Yeah.
they've been on a tear through the lower reaches of non-league football in recent seasons. They've had something like 3 or 4 promotions back to back to back. They missed out on the playoff. They were in the playoffs to get into the National League South last season, but got beat by Gloucester, who ended up getting beat in the final by Tottenham. So it shows you the sort of level they're at, because Tottenham have more than held their own in the National League South. But they just announced in the last week or two that Elmbridge Council are going to upgrade their pitch. So obviously they're preparing themselves to play at a higher level as well. So it'd be interesting to dig into them a little bit. And will we get a chance to see them? Because if Worthing go up and Eastbourne Borough come down, oh yeah, because we'll have Horsham, won't we? And Burgess
Yeah,
Hill.
Horsham.
So yeah, interesting team to keep an eye on, Walton and Hersham.
Yeah, I have been keeping an eye out on them. I think they're in the South League of Step 7, and they've absolutely wiped the floor of that league. I think they're on like 90 odd points, and they've got players with like 20 plus goals. They look an absolute joke. So I do look forward to covering them, as you said, Simon, because they've got some players that have really stood out and they've stormed the league. So if you're basing it off of how FC Tottenham did this season, and narrowly won in the playoff final, and Tottenham are in mid-table, I can't see Walton and Hersham doing any different. So it'd be interesting to see how they get on. But yeah, I wanted to speak about some relegations. Eastbourne Borough and Enfield both relegated to the Isthmian Premier Division. Unbelievable, to be honest. I can't believe Eastbourne Borough are down. It's crazy. They're playing step 3 football for the first time in 23 years, which is just crazy. They've fallen 21 places and have got 55 less points than last season. It's just crazy, isn't it? In terms of an Eastbourne Borough point of view, fans have said, I said it earlier, Lincoln with Braintree, that the squad's got too many young players and they're too inexperienced to be playing at this level. And in August, I saw on Twitter, fans have been speaking out. They said they saw this happening in August because they were saying stuff to the owners, but they got no response. And they saw this coming right from the start, which I think is quite a statement from the fans that they were saying it to the owners at the start of the season, warning that this would happen, and it's actually happened. And I think that's a real credit to the fans for pointing it out right from the start. But I think it just shows how poor it is from the owners that they haven't done anything about it, to be honest. But Steve King FX back. We spoke about it when he came in, about how he relegates basically every team he joins. He's back, but he didn't really have a chance with Eastbourne Borough. They're already out, down and out. But he is still without a win since joining the club as manager. But following up with that, you wanted to speak about as well, Simon, Enfield joining alongside them, being relegated from the National League South, who've done a little bit better than Eastbourne Borough, but it's still been a very underwhelming season for them, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it really, from our perspective, it's more of a case of how did Eastbourne Borough gnaws it up, really, than what Enfield have done, because don't think any of us thought that Enfield were going to pull up many trees in that division. So the fact that they've gone down, they're probably, going back down to the level of football that they were more traditionally associated with in terms of the Isthmian League. So,
Yeah.
From Eastbourne's perspective, it's a real kick in the teeth, and you've got to wonder whether they can turn things around and get themselves back up there.
Yeah, as you said, George, the inexperience doesn't help, but I think their biggest problem has been the owners, and they've just not managed and owned that club well at all. They lost that manager that did so well for him last season. They didn't replace him very well. They didn't. They didn't improve the squad. And yeah, I mean everything's been so dire, and it's crazy, really, that they can drop off that much. It's just can't believe it. Really, it's quite gutting. But at
It's
least you
hard, it's
see
hard
him
to put
playing.
in, it's hard to put into words, isn't it? Yeah, it
It
actually is.
really
It's
is.
crazy how
Yeah,
they've gone, how they've dropped off this much. It's just mad.
yeah. But at least you see him playing Lewes next season. That should be a good game
That'd be a great game. Put
in the
that in the
Isthmian
diary.
Premier Division. Yeah, exactly. We'll move on to Isthmian Prem. And we mentioned earlier, didn't we? Folkestone Invicta champions, and comes at no surprise being the best side in the league by a country mile, and promoted to National League South for the first time ever. They've never played in that division, so that's an amazing day for the club. For the fans, all the players, they've done an amazing job this season. As I said, far and away the best side, and it would just be interesting to see how they cope in the division, because I do think it's a real step up. To be honest, I think it's a very, very big step. But at the same time, we've seen and we've heard people say that it's not that big a step up for clubs that have come up into National League South, like Horsham. They've done really well, and actually players like Danny Bassett on that Instagram page are saying the difference isn't that big. But I just think in terms of some of the top teams in National League South, and then
Oh, the
even
top
in
teams, definitely.
Ishmi and Prem, like the disparity between like the top half in that division and then in this division is quite big. But we'll have
Yeah.
to see how they get on. Another point that we should speak about is Canvey Island being relegated. 6 wins all season, 75 goals conceded. I mean, the writing has been on the wall for Canvey for quite some time, and yeah, I think we all predicted this. I might be wrong, but I think we all predicted them to be down the bottom. It doesn't come as much of a surprise to me, in all honesty.
Yeah, I think. I watched them at the dripping pan, and they went 2-0 up, fair play, but they literally fell apart to a Lewes team that hasn't been good at all this season. I mean, it's just been a, a disaster, really. I think Canvey past couple of seasons, well, obviously not last, but I think the season before that they were, near the playoff places, and this season it's just been absolutely terrible. I mean, the drop off is absolutely mad, and yeah, I mean, in terms of Folkestone, they just haven't stopped really. I mean, I think a point about how they'll deal with the league above Stirling is, you've got Horsham and Dover both staying in the division in the National League South, and I think Folkestone have absolutely breezed this league, so I think they'll be absolutely fine. To be honest, I can't. Well, there's a little sneak peek for our predictions, but I don't see them if they keep the same similar squad, keep the manager. Can't see them being anywhere near the relegation zone, to be honest, because I had the privilege to watch them twice this season, and both times they just popped Burgess Hill and Lewis off the park, really. So Folkestone should be comfortable, but Canvey down to step 8, and it's been coming really since the start of the season. So we'll say goodbye to speaking about Canvey next season. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, one team we will be speaking about is Leatherhead, who have been promoted as champions from the Isthmian South Central. Isn't that right, Dad?
Yeah, and they're going to be playing at a level they've not played at for a long, long time, if ever. I don't think.
Yeah.
The
No,
reason Leatherhead.
2022 was the last time I saw it on.
Okay.
I went to
Yeah.
watch Leatherhead play Lewes, so I would imagine they, well, based off of previous history, they should get promoted into this division. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But not played
look
at that
forward to
level
seeing them.
very often.
No,
The
not at
reason I
all.
want to talk about them really was because it's one of my earliest football memories. Was there was an FA Cup game when they played Brighton, and
Oh
for some
really?
bizarre
Oh,
reason, I don't know why it was 1975. It might have been some weather issue that caused it not to be played on the Saturday, but they played on the Monday at like
right.
1 o'clock in the afternoon. I always remember that. I remember going to school thinking, I can't believe Brighton are playing, and I'm not going to be going there to watch it. It was at Leatherhead, which I knew wasn't that far away, and I think my dad had said that he would take us to the original game, but it must have been rearranged, and obviously he wouldn't pull me out of school to go to that. But Leatherhead won anyway. Long story short, they beat Brighton 3-2. And I think they'd beaten another league club. From memory, it was Colchester.
All
Got
right.
themselves into the fourth round. So
Got some
yeah, it's a
history then.
blast from the past for me. Yeah, so I'd be interested to go and watch them play Lewes next season, definitely.
Yeah,
But I
100%.
don't
You guys,
think just touching briefly on Folkestone, I don't think there's a great deal of difference between these two divisions, frankly. I really don't. And having watched football at both of the at both levels, I think Folkestone will be fine.
Yeah.
yeah, I
Same.
think my original point was more when I'm thinking about like the top teams and breaking into the top half of National League South. That was more what I meant, but I don't think they're going to be concerned about that. I think they will be all
Yeah. Yeah.
right
I agree with
with
that. Yeah.
staying
Yeah.
up, and I think they will stay up. But yeah, I think there's a lot more better teams in the National League South. Seems like an obvious thing to say, right? But there's a
Yeah.
lot of better teams in the National League South than there is in this division. Like I don't actually think that this division has. I've mentioned it before. I don't think this division has loads and loads of quality. There's quite a few teams that I
No.
just think are floating.
Yeah,
But
I agree
that's
with your
just my
point. I
personal
agree with
opinion.
your point that the gap between teams in the Isthmian Prem to the National League South is a lot bigger in the Isthmian Prem than it is to the National League South, because you're seeing teams like Canvey, for example, are like 70 odd points behind
Yeah,
Folkestone. You
exactly.
know, I think there is a lot wider of a gap. I do agree with that. That
Yeah.
point you're making.
But you guys went to watch Lewes versus Whitehawk Sussex Derby. What did you make of that? Lewes had a good result.
Yeah, really good result for Lewes. I was impressed by this. I mean, didn't really turn up Whitehall, did they, Simon? I'll let you speak about the game in a minute. But in terms of the goals, it was Devontae West up to double figures now, with to make it 1-0. Should be Lewis's player of the season, and he's just been incredible for them. I'd be absolutely mind boggled if he stayed
Good
at
lad.
Lewes next season.
Good lad.
If he isn't in a higher league, in my opinion, I'd be absolutely baffled, because he is incredible. He's such a good player, and anytime he gets the ball for Lewis, you think he's going to do something special here. So, unbelievable player, and we all saw it at the Dripping Pan. But Charlie Walker's ball across, former Whitehawk player, saw Alfie Allen just have to tap it in at the back post, and then Danny Bassett came off. He had to shoot off to the Baller League, didn't he, Si? To play for SDS later that day, which a lot of players did have to in the Baller League, playing at this sort of level. Which they spoke about on the Baller League. I did watch it, and there's lots of, you can wildcard players in, and the reason why teams had to wildcard players in is because players that participate in the Baller League have been playing for their Saturday team, and they're not able to do 2 games on the bounce. But Danny Bassett was able to, so fair play to him. He did win as well for SDS, so fair play. But Bobby Onwin was his replacement, wasn't he, Simon? And he sealed the win to make it 3-0. And I was scared, to be honest. Their Isthmian Premier Division status was intact, because before the game they were only 4 points above the drop with 3 games to go. I was a bit iffy, to be honest, having watched them since I was about 13 years old. Hoping they stayed in the division that I've watched for quite a while. But in terms of Whitehawk, Simon, I didn't think they were great at all, and you could see that, because they were without a win in 10 games, and from the way they were playing, you could sort of see that. I mean, in a Sussex derby, didn't
really
seem to,
get up for it at
break
all,
a
did they?
sweat. Didn't look up for it at all, to be honest. But
Yeah. Two of the
Lewis,
goals were tap-ins as well. They didn't have to work that hard for the
yeah, at the
goals,
back
did they?
post. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So,
just,
I mean, it just switched off from the get-go, Whitehawk. I didn't think they were very impressive at all. And I was
no.
surprised that Lewis pulled that performance out, really, because, as you say, going into the game, their status in that division was under threat a little bit, but they've sort
Yeah,
of put that to bed now, I think, which is pleasing. And they've got some good
yeah,
players. As
definitely,
you say, Devontae West clearly can play at a high level.
100%.
Danny Bassett, I think, could also play at a higher level. So it'd be interesting to
Yeah.
see what machinations Eastbourne Borough have when they drop down into this division, really, because the nature of football at this level is that money talks, and you'd think that maybe Eastbourne Borough might be attracting players of that quality to go and play for them, which would be to the detriment of Lewis. But you'd have to worry about Whitehawk, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think next season's a really big season for Lewis. They've been floating and kind of having, I've said it many a time, the same season, like over and over again. And we know about the financial situation. I just think that it's going to be quite crucial to see whether they can actually push on, because they seem to have a good season, to have a good start to the season, and then drop off, and they're doing that, and it almost seems like the club should be playing at a higher level, but they can't get there. And it almost
Yeah.
seems like the disparity between the women's team and the men's team is almost causing like an unstable financial situation. So I think it's going to be quite an important one for that reason, which could. From the outside perspective, it seems like that could obviously be completely wrong. We don't really know all the ins and outs and why it's happening. But regardless, they keep having the same season. They need to
Yeah.
push on. Otherwise, I just fear that they might just get relegated from this division if they don't.
Yeah. I think
You know?
I think, yeah, I think one of the key factors is if they can keep the same team, because for the past
Mm.
3 seasons they've had 3 different squads, and it's like, oh, you can't even keep up with who's playing for Lewis at
Yeah,
the minute, and it's just, can they keep the same manager? Can they keep familiar players? Because this season, they've had to bring back Parish Muirhead, they've had to bring back Jack Enck, they've had to bring back Danny Bassett, they've had to bring
yeah,
back Bobby Onwin, they've had to bring back all their former players, because under Bradley Pritchard, they brought in a whole new squad, and half of
yeah,
them had to leave because obviously Craig Nelson has a different way of playing. About Eastbourne
yeah,
Borough, the reason why Steve King was, brought up as quite a decent manager was because of his time at Lewis at this level and being a really successful manager for Lewis. So I think it will be interesting to see how Steve King gets on at this level with Eastbourne Borough, if he stays, because the reason
yeah,
why he's getting gigs at teams in higher leagues is because of how well he did with Lewis in this division. So be
yeah,
interesting to see. I think it's going to be a cracking season next season. I look forward to doing predictions because we're all a bit more clued up with everyone now, so we should be a bit more accurate with our predictions come the end of the season. So I have to wait
yeah.
and see.
It's like what you were saying about the players and the management changing a lot. That's partly links to what I'm saying. It's like when that's
Yeah,
happening,
yeah, yeah,
you're at a risk, aren't you? A lot of people not wanting to turn up, or
100%.
people not wanting to come and play for you. So I
Mm,
think that we're gonna have to keep. Obviously, we will, but keep a close eye on Lewis next season because I think it's quite crucial for them.
100%. Yeah, I
But
can see it being a crucial season for them, as he said. So definitely keep an eye out for it.
absolutely. But we'll leave it there. Thank you everyone for watching. It's been thoroughly enjoyable.
Okay.
Lots of stuff to talk about. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
See you later. Bye bye.